We have 20 of 26. What do we think, folks? I think I got enough head nods there, so I'm going to, we're going to begin this thing. So thank you everybody for arriving at virtual session number 2 of the Greater Cleveland Trails and Greenways mini conference. As you all know, this is the Using Social Media to Increase Trail Support and Use, where you will learn about successful posts, managing public comments, widening audiences, and the importance of being out on the trails, and of course, parenthetically, documenting that you're out on the trails. So we've got a good group of presenters here. I'm Jim Ridge from Share the River, and I'm your host. Thank you for being part of today. Our presenters are Meghan Paynter. She's the Director of Communications for Canalway Partners. Devyn Giannetti. She is the Senior Communications Specialist for Cuyahoga County. Kathryn Kerber. She is the Project Manager for the City of Bay Village and a very enthusiastic and new user of social media to connect with City of Bay Village's audiences. And then Kelly Pack, who is not yet on here, but she's the Senior Director of Trail Development for the Rails to Trails Conservancy. We have just a couple of ground rules. First, everybody's has been muted, so you won't have the ability to speak up, but we would love for you to take advantage of the Q&A function on the Zoom call. Devyn is monitoring the Q&A, and I will be taking a look at that as well. So if you have a question and want to prompt a conversation or a follow-up on something that our presenters have been talking about, please mash that Q&A button and hit us early and often with what's in mind, because odds are, if you've got the question, so do 10 other people on the call. Announcements. I think I've already given the welcome. Our goal is to host these focused information and training sessions around the topics of trails and bikeways in the year, and we are not hosting an in-person conference. So this is the first virtual mini conference of the Greater Cleveland Trails and Greenways conference programming. We will host an in-person conference in 2023, and we are looking for new members and new ideas. If you're interested in joining the team, please contact Elaine Price at County Planning. Today's sessions are being recorded for future access. The presentation materials and the recordings will be posted on the GC Trails website within a week. We imagine that you'll even be sent a link for that. If you would still like to participate in one of the remaining sessions, you can still register to get the Zoom link. Item 6, if there is still room available on the mobile workshops in the afternoons, please register. There's some neat mobile workshops out there, two today and the same ones tomorrow. Bike helmets are mandatory for the Harrison Dillard Bike Tour. Bring your own, no helmets will be provided. And CEUs are available through the American Planning Association and the Outdoor Parks and Recreation Association. Information on those CEUs is available on the gctrails.org website. Old one. Without further ado, we're gonna have Meghan over at Canalway kick off the presentations and the Q&A conversations that we're going to be having. Hi, Meghan. How are you doing?
Good morning. So just a quick expansion on Jim's introduction. I'm Meghan Paynter. I'm the Director of Communications for Canalway. Canalway Partners is a nonprofit cultural heritage organization that works to program and preserve the Ohio and Erie Canalway National Heritage Area in Cuyahoga County. We do a lot of programming and promotion around the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail. And in my role, I use social media to connect people to places in the National Heritage Area that are culturally and historically important. And a lot of that work is around the Towpath Trail. We use social media to promote the events that we program on the trail. And then also, now that the trail is complete in Cuyahoga County, we use social media to educate that audience and get them to those events that we're hosting and educate them on how to get to the trail and use those trailheads and the trail as a whole. Devyn, did you want to do a little bit more introduction as well?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Yes, my name is Devyn Giannetti, and I'm a senior communications specialist with Cuyahoga County. I'm one of just a few people responsible for some of the county's social media channels. We share information on a variety of things, considering Cuyahoga County is so large and we're responsible for so many different things. But big part of what we do is promoting the work that our Department of Public Works does, as well as supporting the mission of the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission. And that can come up in a variety of ways, but specifically for this conference, it's promoting trails and bikeways, paths, and different ways that the county is working to enhance livability for residents in Cuyahoga County. So really excited to be here. I'll turn it over to Kathryn.
Good morning. I'm Kathryn Kerber, project manager for the City of Bay Village. I'm envious of these people who have entire departments for social media, because really it's just a very small part of what I do, and I'm the only one who does it. So for the City of Bay Village, and we didn't really have any kind of Facebook presence at all until pretty recently when I started managing it. So we're in the process of trying to build our audience, and our real purpose with Facebook is to provide useful information for our residents and necessary information. We are our following is 74% female and 45% between the ages of 35 and 54. So it's really the family planners who follow us on Facebook. So we really try to get them useful information. So I really rely a lot on what other people post so that I can share it and get the information to people more efficiently. Thanks. Back to Jim.
And for our participants, we have just recently had joined us Kelly Pack. She's at Rails to Trails Conservancy. Kelly, why don't you give our audience a little sense of what you do at RTC?
Sure, and my apologies for being late, everyone.
You're good.
My name is Kelly. Okay, my name is Kelly Pack. I'm the Senior Director of Trail Development at Rails to Trails Conservancy. We're a national nonprofit based in DC, but we have field offices in different locations, including in Ohio. My colleague Eric Oberg, who some and many of you might already know, was busy today, so I'm kind of pitching in for him. We do work in the Cleveland area and Northeast Ohio, primarily through the Industrial Heartland Trails Coalition, which I'll talk a little bit more about. I'm not a communications professional like the other ladies on this panel. My primary role at RTC is as kind of a project manager and trail planner. But I'm really excited to share with the group a new tool that RTC has provided to our coalition and to any partner who would like to use a photo library. So I'll be demonstrating a photo library that we've curated for the Industrial Heartland Trails Coalition, but it includes lots of great images of trails in Cleveland and Northeast Ohio.
Well, thanks, Kelly. So I'm going to kick things off with a favorite subject of mine. And the formal question is, can you share a social media success story, either a successful post or a larger social media campaign related to trails or greenways, and the elements you believe led to its success? And my side interest is I'm always fascinated at the posts, the impromptu posts that you don't think are going to go anywhere. You just kind of put it out there, and all of a sudden it lights a match with the audience and it gets shared a bunch of times. So I'm really curious about that aspect of your motion. But I've asked the question. I'm now going to defer to the wisdom of the panel here. So who would like to take a first bite out of that question?
Go ahead and start. Thanks, Jim. So, I want to precursor two things. One, the county's social media accounts are really collaborative in that the things that we post successfully are not without the help, especially of our county's multimedia department. We're really lucky to have 3 members of staff who kind of help gather material that we can then promote, and the trails has been a big part of that. The second thing I want to say is that, success it really looks different to everyone. It can differ based on audience. It can differ based on what you believe success to be. So, for example, I'm going to share my screen here really quick. Jim, will you let me know if you can see this in just a moment?
We are good.
Okay. So this is a post that we put out. Let's see, it was last June, and it was to celebrate the completion of stage 4 of the towpath trail. And as you can see here, I'm going to play this and I'm going to turn that sound off. This is just a really nice visual video to kind of show the work that was done on stage 4 of the towpath trail. And this video was a long time coming. It was the result of many years of months of background recording and kind of, documenting that process, and being able to put something out after the completion of the towpath trail, I think, is what was really successful, because it gave residents an opportunity to see all the trail had to offer without even having to step foot. But it was a really good way to appeal to people to show the value of getting out on that trail. So it did well for us performance-wise, but the biggest success of it was that we were just able to use it as an informational tool for our residents. And this was possible through our multimedia department spending quite a long time out on the trail getting this background footage, so that we could show this to residents and see what our community has to offer. So this is an example of a post that we found successful, and we try to do things like this as much as we can to show all that the county has to offer.
Yeah, success in your realm, is a little bit of a different thing as opposed to a commercial product. There were, a gajillion views and people buying the product. Folks, it's not so much that people are buying your product; they've invested in your product through tax dollars. But now it's, the best thing is not so much sharing on social, but seeing lots of people out on stage 4 of the towpath trail and using it, right?
Exactly. And it definitely doesn't hurt that one of our photographers, videographers is an avid bike rider, who's to say if he wasn't, then we'd be able to get cool footage like this. But so yeah, it's not about really selling a product. An educational campaign is really what succeeds for us.
Now, in terms of the audience for that, what one assumes that you've got large funders with either federal or state that you want to have see this information out there to say, hey, here's what your funds have helped create. So can you talk a little bit about sometimes I'm focused on we can be focused on the retail side of social, but there's also a wholesale side, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, these videos definitely help show, those that are funding these opportunities that we're kind of, putting our money where our mouth is, and that these are, this is what's come from investment, and it shows others, even across the country, if they follow us, the opportunities that are available through collaboration. So yeah, it's really good to be able to show that to those locally and those that are trying to replicate something like this in their own backyard.
And finally, when you mentioned that you work with a number of partners, can you talk a little bit in terms of those, when you tag those local partners on a post and sharing that post, that them sharing through their feeds helps increase the scope and the reach of your post? Because if it's just your audience, you're doing one to your known audience, but if other people share it, you start getting that multiplying effect.
Sure. And you know, Elaine Price is really one to credit for that. She's spent a lot of time over the last few months kind of gathering the folks that are involved in these trail projects and responsible for putting things out there to the world. She brought everyone together to kind of plan a more holistic strategy to how we can talk about this and be sharing this with each other to make the reach a little bit wider than it would be with just our individual audiences. So the collaboration's really important, and she brought people together that have that same goal of educating about the trail, so that our reach can be even bigger.
Well, you know, it's the trail had been a long time coming, so a lot of people were excited to be able to share news of you know, the final stage of the trail there.
Yes.
So Kathryn, why don't you give us the benefit of your experience wading into the social media pool?
Sure. Well, I'm going to say, first of all, I really appreciate posts like the county posts, because then we can share them, or I can share them to our Facebook page with little effort on my part, and I do not have a lot of time to spend on this. So if you are part of an organization that wants to promote your trails, find me on Facebook. Find your local cities pages on Facebook and let them know you're out there and try to connect with them. And we're more than happy to cross-post anything, because that's really the most efficient way for us to do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have some of our own original material as well. I have one that I would like to share, if I could figure out how to do it. This is one that was kind of surprising that it was as popular as it was. This is Cuyahoga Memorial Park, the center of all of our trails, and our assistant parks director snapped this great storm clouds picture. And you know, most of our posts get, you know, 1 or 2 likes. So this one for us at 93, that was a blow up for us.
Yeah, that's shelf clouds are big stuff. You know?
Yes, yeah. And you know, stuff like this I found then led to better engagement after the fact, because once you get more exposure and people liking your things, then you know, they see it more. So in addition to posting, you know, necessary stuff, I'm trying to post fun stuff as well. So yeah, I appreciate all the content that people with more staff create, because it's very useful for us.
Yeah, that shelf clouds and water spouts, you know, those are, you know, those just blow up, you know, and National Weather Service jumps all over that. And then next thing you know, everybody's like, wow, what's going on?
Yeah, there was actually a water spout that somebody in Bay Village got a nice shot of that ended up on the News 5 feed. So that was another good one.
There you go. There you go. Okay, Megan, time for you to take a bite out of this conversation.
Great.
And of course, Devyn stole a lot of your thunder here. We're talking about the towpath trail there, but please go on.
Yeah, so between Devyn and I, we'll be talking about the towpath trail a lot in this conversation, it seems like. But I wanted to hit back on something that Kathryn said, where, you know, we have a lot of success randomly with just pretty pictures. You know, it works out pretty well. Those seems to be the content, especially with, you know, a simple caption like that, like beautiful day for a ride. We get a lot of, you know, questions on that. It's the picture of the trail in a nice spot. People want to know where that is. Where can they park? How can they access it? So a lot of those pretty pictures can be real big winners. But I wanted to share something that we had some success with recently that's a little bit different than especially what Devyn shared, and a little bit different than just a random pretty picture. So this is more of a social media campaign. Can you see my screen with my cute pictures of dogs? Great. So here's some screenshots from a social media campaign that we did recently, where we did a photo contest on our Facebook and Instagram feeds. We called this Towpath Tales Photo Contest, and we asked our followers to send us pictures of walking their dogs out on the towpath trail. And one of the reasons that we're doing this is because the towpath has a great reputation, we have a very dedicated following of, experienced bikers, experienced runners. But we definitely want to grow that audience to include, some of the casual walkers, people that might not have been out there before. So we wanted to develop some content around showing people how to use the towpath beyond running and biking. And so we took this approach of people walking their dogs. So like I said, we asked people to submit photos. We worked with the Cleveland APL to use some photos that they already had to promote the contest beforehand. So we spent 2 weeks asking people to send in photos. Then we spent 2 weeks asking people to vote on the photos that had been submitted with these cute little collages from the submitted photos. And then we spent a week, promoting the winner. So this gave us about a month's worth of content. It included some cute pictures of dogs, which people tend to really like. We got some really great engagement with this. Our overall goals with this program, we wanted to show, a more casual way to use the towpath. We also wanted to grow our following and increase engagement. So during this campaign, you can see these screenshots show you that a lot of these posts got a lot of shares. Our Facebook following grew about 2%. Instagram grew 11%, which was a big up for us. And then our engagement was really where we saw some increase. So the number of engaged users on Facebook during the contest was up 50% over the previous month. And our post likes on Instagram were up 33% from the previous month. And one reason that I wanted to share this is because I think that this structure could be used for any trail in a variety of different types of ways. So we're a really small team. We do not have a dedicated videographer like Devyn is lucky enough to have. So one of the reasons for me is like, oh, I can get people to send me photos and then share those. Like, that's great. That's a great way for me to have a month's worth of content without, going out and spending year taking video like Devyn's team did to create that 2-minute video. So I think that people could reuse this idea, ask people to send pictures of the trail during the snow, the trail during the fall, your bike leaning somewhere on a trail. You could do this in a bunch of different ways and get people to send you content, which is a big win when you have a small team or you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to building a social media campaign around a trail. But this shows people different ways to use the trail, different spots on the trail. It was a big win for me specifically to have, easy content to pull out and lots of pictures of cute dogs, which is always good.
So I'm gonna ask, put you on the spot here, Meghan. So you have these pictures with dogs going out and you get all this traction. Do you ever get bugged? It's like, we're putting out this solid other content that's important and it goes nowhere. And the dogs, it just blows up. It's like the old vaudeville line, never go on after a dog or a child on stage, because they'll always upstage you. So how do you wrestle with that?
Yeah, so for me, social media is all about growing our audience and exposing our brand. So the more people that we can get to learn about the towpath trail, maybe they came here for this cute picture of a dog and now they're learning, oh, that's where this trailhead is, or that's where I can park for this. So yeah, we might be drawing them in with cute pictures of dogs or just great photography in general. But once they get there, they're going to stumble upon some of our content. And then looking at those engagement numbers, that's what Facebook likes. If the algorithm is telling Facebook that people are going to our page and clicking through our content, then they're going to serve them up more of our content. So while they might have, again, just clicked on that one picture of a dog, they're now going to see more of our content because Facebook thinks that they like our page already.
Yeah, and as a communications professional reminded me, just when you think you've got Facebook figured out, they're going to change the algorithm. But to your point, you're spot on with that. So, the second question that we've kind of been covering here, and Meghan, you've kind of opened up that Pandora's box, is how do you utilize visual elements like photo and video of trails and greenways to enhance your social media posts and campaigns? So, Devyn, would you want to provide additional thoughts on that subject?
Sure. I don't have a ton to expand on after, the success story, but I will say that, it's really great that Canalway has found, some success in collaborating with residents to get this content. It's interesting. The county hasn't always found success in that. I feel like it's difficult for people to relate to a government organization, to find, investment in government organizations. So that's something that we're always really trying to expand on, is that conversation with residents to an engagement. But yes, visual posts always do better for us, and they don't always have to come from a professional photographer, as we're all kind of saying. It can be a quick photo that you snapped of the skyline on your drive-in or something like that. It can be really, really simple, but it just needs to evoke a sense of belonging and accessibility, especially with trails, to show that anybody can use it, anyone can take advantage.
Yeah, I think that accessibility point is really good there, Devyn, because we're always trying to educate people about our trail. And so if you can show them a picture of a trail and kind of show them, like on the towpath specifically, where this is relevant to where they are. So if you can show the river, or a little slice of Tremont, or just help them position themselves on the trail, I find that is one of the biggest barriers to getting people out there, is they just don't know where to go. And that can be, you can really use photography and videography specifically. I love that part of the video, Devyn, where it really shows the biker going down like the Sokolowski's Overlook and into Camp Cleveland. So you can show those connections on a video. And it's great to have a team, but also, you can just walk those. If you have an iPhone, you can put it on like the time lapse, and you can take a 4-minute walk and turn it into a 4-second video or something like that. So as one person on my team dedicated to communications, I really find myself placing value on that and getting out on the trail and just snapping pictures as I need them, as I see, and just trying to keep a library of fun images that I can expose people, like in the rain, in the snow, having seasonal images, having some quick videos. It's really a good education tool and really does help, further your message.
And following up on one of our Q&A questions, Devyn, the videographer for a lot of that drone footage, I'm not sure if that's Greg or somebody else, but that is a Cuyahoga County employee and not a third-party person that's up there doing it. So normally you would give some sort of photo credit to it, but when it's an employee, it's a little bit different, right?
Correct. And luckily our team is, we're about sharing, we're about, the overall thing is to get the message out. So, we share our content with our partners, we put it out there for the world to see. And, it's not about credit. It's about, collaboration and sharing footage to gain exposure of the trail itself.
So a third question on our list was, do you engage with the public on social media? And we've already talked a little bit about that. How do you foster engagement and nurture public comment? So do you have, so like Megan's suggestion on the dog photography certainly was one. So Kathryn, have you had any success with an engagement type of initiative where it's like, oh, folks responded to that? Okay, note to self.
We don't really get a lot of comments on our stuff, to be honest, except some grumbling about like construction updates and things like that, which roads are going to be closed. We're kind of just using it as an informational thing. We do get like questions through Facebook Messenger and that kind of thing about city questions, but that's really it. We don't get a lot of that. Can I throw in something about what Meghan was saying a minute ago about the library of trail photos? We got a new city website a couple of years ago, and again, we didn't have money for a professional photographer, so I went out with my iPhone and got what I think are some very nice pictures of our trails and city assets. And so they're all up as banner images on the city website, and it's really nice. They rotate seasonally. And it just is a reminder to residents when they go to the website that we really do have all these great assets in town. So sorry to dodge back that way.
Well, my unprofessional advice is, if you want to get engagement, put a dog or a cat in the subject matter and zoom.
Yeah, I was going to say we just had our fire hydrants painted, and I added a dog to the picture just because I knew it would get more attention.
And
Yeah, much more popular than just a picture of a fire hydrant. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, the dogs are great for encouraging shares of photos. But as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we get a lot of questions on photos that if maybe like a vague caption, like a photo of the trail, and someone's like, oh, where is that? And of course, I love to provide as much detail as I can, but sometimes it's good to just vary the different amounts of content you're putting in your posts to kind of encourage people to ask those questions. Another item that I just have for engaging with the public is sometimes just including a link in the comments for more information. General social media advice, this is all over the internet, so it's not unique to me, but asking a question in your post that says like, what's your favorite place on the towpath, or asking people to vote on something like we did for our dog contest, that can help foster engagement. And what I've also found is sometimes you just get lucky where one person says something like that's insightful or smart or asks a question, and then people respond to that. So I know we all want to be the people that are out there engaging with the public, but sometimes just letting a conversation happen on a post, or just lucking into it, is really great for developing that engagement. And then you can monitor that conversation. You can answer questions as they come up, provide links if necessary, but really letting people discuss the topic on your post, which that's what we all want. We want that to happen. And sometimes it happens because you made the right post, and sometimes it happens because someone is out there, having better thoughts than you that day.
And to Kathryn's point, I just wanted to say one other thing. I think there's value in leaning into the process. So you were talking about, residents inquiring about construction, and and I think that's a really important aspect of it, especially if any of that construction is affecting their commute, having them invested through that whole process to say, yes, this might be a inconvenience now, but come, September 2024, like this is what it's going to look like. This is how much it's going to cost. At the county, we're able to kind of lean into that because our Department of Public Works is involved in those things, managing the construction of certain projects and everything. And I think residents appreciate hearing about that. They want to know what the status is. They want to know when it's going to be completed. And then, they're invested, and by the time it's done, you can more easily guarantee that they will actually go and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Devyn. And like Kathryn said earlier, escalating everyone else's message. So if the county shares something, we use our channels to promote that, retweet them, reshare their posts. I know at some point this summer, the city had a parking lot under construction next to the towpath trail in Canal Basin Park. So we made sure we wanted to share all the content that they had available for that, make sure people know that if they get down there, the lot is closed. But we're not really developing that content ourselves. We're just sharing it from the city. So there's a lot of resources out there to help you, educate your audience and get some engagement while also, promoting another organization's content.
Well, let's move on to question number 4 in the list. That is, what are the advantages or disadvantages of including call to actions in your social media posts? And who wants it? Because everybody's like, that's okay.
I can jump on this. I think this might be a question that I submitted because, Jim, as you mentioned earlier, we're always fighting the algorithm on social media. Facebook changes what they like and what they don't like on a regular basis. But all social media channels want to keep their viewers on that social media channel. They don't want to send people off to different pages. So when you're on Facebook, when we share a link, I know you've all been on Facebook and you've clicked a link and you get that little pop-up that says you're now leaving Facebook. That's a gate that they put up to try to prevent people from leaving their page. So while we always want to push people to our website, we always want to provide more information about the trails, about our events. It's good practice to switch up those posts occasionally and just include a photo, maybe include a link in the comments, or maybe include a bunch of information in your post and make it really long so people don't have to click out. Those call to actions are great for your website. They're great for click through. They're great for selling tickets to events. But if you really want to use Facebook to its full advantage, you want to vary those posts and use different kinds of call to actions. Maybe it is comment below, maybe it is drop a picture in the comments, something like that. But you definitely just want to make sure that you're aware of what the algorithm is doing and how it's going to punish you if you push people away too much.
Yeah, the algorithm overlord, that we're all in service to, right? And we're getting paid so handsomely for it as well.
To add to that, a lot of what I do is just trying to push information out to people so they know what's going on. So yeah, I absolutely at least include the where and when in the Facebook post, and then link to additional information. Because I know most people are just scrolling through, and if I can at least get it past their eyes, I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, include the basics in the main post.
Now, do you all consider social kind of like the three-legged bar stool of connecting with people that, certain sales or image consultants will say, you got to be, somebody has to hear that message at least 3 times through different channels in order for it to penetrate their noggin, because their, media landscape is so atomized out there, and you cannot bet on one horse and have that horse come in. But if you place 3 bets, and is social part of that? So you've got direct email, you've got a regular website, and then, social is kind of like the third leg of that. Hey, pay attention, people, Barstool.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And I think it's important, especially if you've got an initiative or an event that you're trying to promote. It's really about the pre, the during, and the post. Kind of follow through with that. Make sure they're aware that something's happening before it's happening. Show them what's happening live right in front of them if you can, and then highlight the post, the effect, the impact. And social media is a good place to do that. And if you're doing calls to action and you don't want to direct them to a link per se, but you want to get the information right in front of them, Twitter, a Twitter thread can be a really good way to do that. It can be kind of a mini campaign in itself, where you can use a variety of visuals and short little snippets of information to get the message out, so that you don't have to direct them off the page and ruin an algorithm. So social media is a smaller strategy to a bigger picture, but can be, the most effective one a lot of times.
So a question has come in about and communities which don't have a dedicated videographer or drone, can they tap into the county for assistance? So let's say you've got a cool project, is there a vehicle for saying, hey, county, we don't have those chops or technical skills. Can you help us document this thing that, is part of this bigger trails and green space landscape that we're all working towards trying to make happen? So Devyn, what's the take there?
For sure. And we have those conversations, all the time. We work with different communities on things that the county, is involved in, and things that we just think are good for the community to be aware of and affect our residents. So, we commonly collaborate with communities, with mayors, with cities, to get the message out. We do that pretty often.
All right, bear with me for one moment. I think, Devyn, you shared this earlier. So one of the last on the number of questions we've got here is, how do you utilize social media for your organization's event promotions? And then there's a follow-up question. And well, we'll just leave it at that. There is one more question. So how do you use social media for your organization's event promotion? So maybe you can mention a recent event that, is kind of like, well, folks kind of knew about it through our website and our calendar, what have you, but we put it on social, and all of a sudden, all these people showed up and we didn't have enough food or drink for them. There's probably a story like that out there. So who wants to go first?
Well, I wanted to touch a little bit on your last comment, Jim, about the three-legged, campaign. So using social media as just an element, and Canalway hosts a lot of events And that's definitely a big portion. And as Devyn said, of how we market things. And as Devyn said, it can be one of the most successful ones, but it also can be one of the least successful ones and have nothing to do with the amount of posts you put out or the quality of those posts. It can be because it was a really big news day, and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter were flooded with all of that news. So your post fell flat. So while we definitely use social media as a tool to promote those events, and we create Facebook events, we create dedicated imagery. When we have the budget, we do, ads on social media to promote our events. We also rely heavily on our own channels. So like you mentioned, Jim, email newsletters. Like we know that when we send an email list, it is getting to those, that number of people that we have on our list, whether or not they're opening it. But we have more control than when it shows up in a Facebook feed. So we definitely rely heavily on social media for event promotion and know that we need additional elements, whether that is paid elements or an email newsletter, anything like that. So we use, like you said, all three or more than three channels to communicate events, but social media is a really heavy one when it comes to events.
Well, I think that I was talking with a client last week that is still challenged in terms of their engagement with their online audience. And one of the things that they were struggling with was getting the media to pay attention to their event and getting the media to cover it. And one of the things that I counseled them was any small organization, small, medium, or large organization can approach an event with the mindset that they are their own broadcaster in some respects. If you capture the content, you capture the pictures, you get the drone video, if you can have the ability to be able to capture that content for your event, one of my phrases is, if you host an event and you didn't document it, that event didn't happen. And I'm curious if you have those kind of things in mind when we're doing an event. We got to have a photographer, and and sometimes you can get pro bono efforts, but sometimes it pays to hire somebody to do that, and get that drone operator. So how do you all work through that to make sure that you've got the content so that you can document it, tell that story, broadcast it yourself, and then, oh, by the way, if the media didn't sniff around on that story initially, they'll start paying attention because it's like, oh, that was newsworthy. We missed that. We saw the press release, but we didn't respond to it. How do you all go about building that library? And by the way, I well know all of that can be an immense time suck. So how do you manage that?
Well, from the county side, we engage with our photographer and videographer, and those elements can be used for promotional purposes and post-event purposes, but they also serve a big purpose for archival purposes, for things like annual reports, being able to show the impact of a program. And we know that, what we do internally to document an event is only one piece of the puzzle when you're trying to do an event. You want to put something out there that does feel newsworthy to the media, and one of those elements can be preparing some B-roll footage for a reporter prior to the event, so that when they're there, you can give that to them and they're able to take that and use it as they please for their story. So an event is successful if you have a good turnout, and then if you get media coverage on it, and that can be a big part of it. So kind of taking those elements and making them available for reporters, for those who show up, can help make that successful.
Yeah, I mean, Jim and Devyn, I think you hit on both things, like finding a photographer, remembering to do all of that planning before the event can be really hard sometimes, but it is so important. Like you said, Jim, if there are photos, that event didn't happen to anyone that wasn't there. It only happened to the people that showed up. So your event audience is much smaller, and it makes promoting the event again next year a lot harder if you don't have those photos. So it's a very important element that is easy to forget, but is so important for social media promotion. Like we said, the visuals are really important. A photo library is really important.
Well, and that's why, you know, it's also important to cultivate relationships with great photographers like Canalway has with like Dan Morgan, and, you know, his iconic images that you all use for your race awards. You know, those are things that people love and they take home. And cultivating those relationships with photographers is big, because, you know, those photographers can charge a hefty street price, but for a small organization or 501c3 or folks that are just trying to, you know, get the ball rolling, you know, they'll work with you. And, you know, and they'll work with you because it's like getting exposure through your channel will give them, you know, some traffic. And the next thing you know, it becomes this virtual cycle. So speaking of media, I'm going to, Kelly, I'm going to say you're up to something here, because this question from Andrea came in. How does Rails to Trails Conservancy manage their national social media, but make it relevant locally? And I think that is a nice TO to go right into your talk about the photo library.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for the question, Andrea. You know, I'll just repeat, I'm not a communications professional. We have a whole team at RTC that does that amazing, wonderful work. And I know that we are really strategic about how we use social media to target local areas. I'm not the best person to answer that question, but Andrea and others, I can get our social media guru to answer that at some point. But I did want to say that just listening, you know, to Devyn, Meghan, and Kathryn talk about what they're doing in their county or within their specific site or project or city, community, it just reminds me of how vital, you know, those marketing and communication professionals are to our efforts as trail advocates, right? So I'm coming to this with my trail planner and advocate hat on. And at RTC, we're always thinking about how you are going to convert your trail user to be a trail supporter, to be a trail advocate. And I think that there are a lot of tools and channels and strategies that we all use to get people through that conversion, right? And certainly media, like social media and other media channels, are such a big part of getting that conversion to happen, because it's advocates. Ultimately, we want those trail users to supporters to advocates to be enjoying their experience on the trail, talking about it with their family, friends, and community, right? And then pushing decision makers to improve trail connections or create more trails in their community, or you know, get better investment for trails, walking and biking. So I just thank you to all of the wonderful folks who do that really important work. For sharing the Industrial Heartland Trails Coalition Photo Library, I was just going to take a couple minutes to kind of give some context here, and I'm going to share my screen. A little background on the Industrial Heartland Trails Coalition, or IHTC, as we call it. And shout out to Andrea Ireland in the audience. Andrea is with the Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance Program and serves Northeast Ohio. She's a big support, and our RTCA is a partner in the IHTC, along with Rails to Trails Conservancy and the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. Just letting everyone know that IHTC is part of a collection of regional trail networks across the country that RTC is kind of deeply engaged in. And all of these projects are kind of at different scales, but they connect millions and millions of Americans to trails in their regions. The IHTC coalition is working to establish a 1,500 plus mile network across 4 states, You can see kind of the map here and how many of these small communities, you know, are connected to larger anchor cities like Cleveland. The evolution of the trail network really came out of a regional economic development effort in the Pittsburgh region, and kind of before that, there were initiatives to look at how to better connect rail trails and multi-use trails within Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Through the Power of 32, which was the name given to that economic development initiative, we had a trails working group that eventually evolved into the Industrial Heartland Trails Coalition. It is made up of lots and lots of different partners across those 50 plus counties. And this just gives you a better sense of the individual existing trails that exist within all of these mega corridors. And then of course, within each of those, there are really vital gaps that need to be filled to complete the network. As we're working together as a coalition, again, dozens of partners, including those city, county planners, convention and visitors bureaus folks, individual trail groups, state and regional tourism offices, lots of different health, the health community too, lots of different partners working together to advance this vision. And some of the first pieces of our work were really to take a look at the different mega corridors that you saw on the screen that connect the full system, and do a detailed look at how to fill in the gaps. So there are feasibility studies for each of those major corridors, and the one most relevant to Cleveland is the Cleveland to Pittsburgh Trail. Out of that effort, you know, we did talk a lot with individual communities and trail groups to understand what the gaps were, what the cost might be to fill them. And, you know, alongside all of this is how do you better advocate for the trail connections to happen, and what partners need what tools to do that. So part of what we have been putting together is a photo library that includes high quality images that could be used for print and digital media, a diversity of trail user demographics that are represented in the photos, diversity of trail user type by activity, and images that capture trail use in all seasons. And the reason why these kind of 4 different criteria came up as we were doing planning work and working together along with the coalition is we all had a ton of images that we were taking with our cell phones, and some of that worked really well for the purposes that we needed, you know, maybe to include in a plan or for a brochure that we were putting together. We had some really nice images of trails, but a lot of times they didn't have people in them, or it was the same use, right? And the same demographic of people in all the photos. And as we also continued conversations, like I said, with convention and visitors bureaus or regional and state tourism offices, they also expressed a need for greater diversity in these images and for some high quality images that they could use in, you know, in their print media or also across their digital media channels as well. Okay, so I'm gonna demonstrate really quick. I'm gonna switch my screen to demonstrate the photo library. Here we go, share here. And all right, can everyone see, or is everyone seeing the photo library? Okay,
yep.
Great. So I do want to mention too, I don't want to neglect to mention that the support for this photo library comes from the Gun Foundation, which is a longtime supporter of course, of trails in the Cleveland region and of the Industrial Heartland Trails Coalition. So we're really thankful for their support. When we began the process of putting this photo library together, we also put out an RFP to solicit proposals from photographers. We ended up going with a great group of photographers that were able to get to the different locations, all 3 states, all of the 3 primary states, and we're also able to get on the ground in, you know, all 4 seasons as well. And I did want to say that as part of that, of contracting the photographers that we worked with, they actually provided a session to our coalition on how to better take and use iPhone or, you know, smartphone photos. And it was really helpful, just I think for those of us who really need to be able to rely on, you know, our own cameras or phones as a way to capture these images. They offered some techniques and, you know, just kind of framing and settings that you can use on iPhone to enhance your photos. So it's just making a mental note that I'll try to find that recording because it might be useful to this group as well. So we now have these, you know, 236 images this is in RTC's photo gallery that we use. We have a login that anyone can receive from my colleague, Eric, and I'll give you his information later. But it basically directs you to this specific gallery, and anybody who would like to have access to it can use these images for free. So you can kind of see that there are lots of the images included. When you enter into the gallery, you can see all of them. And I'm going to scroll to, sorry, I know that that's a little hard to look at someone scrolling on their computer screen like that, but we're getting to Cleveland. I just wanted to demonstrate a couple of features in case you do end up using this gallery. On any of the images, you're able to download different sizes of the image that you might need for, you know, for either print or maybe social media. You can download any of those directly. You're also able to, I'm sorry, I'm going to need to move my, there we go. You're also able to get the metadata on the photograph, and it includes the photographer's name. So somebody mentioned being sure to reference the photographer that's used to credit them. And so all that information is included in the metadata here. One of the things that's nice is that all of these photos are tagged. So if I wanted to just isolate photos from Cleveland, I could do that. And I could also filter, sorry, let's see. I could also filter if I wanted to, say, by like finding a vertical image. This was something that I was trying to do today as I was putting together the PowerPoint, right? Like I needed to find a vertical image to fit my space. So there are different filters that you can use here. And I want to go back to the main. So yeah, just as you can see, lots of really great images, lots of different types of use. At RTC, we're also always looking for good equestrian photos because we don't often have those. So user types as equestrian. These wintertime photos are great. Again, we don't have a lot of wintertime photos, and that is really helpful. And wanted to kind of scroll through these. I don't know how well you're seeing these on the screen, but I encourage you to contact, let's see, I'm gonna go back over to, encourage you to contact my colleague, Eric. We're doing access to the photo library through email just to kind of create a barrier so that he can reinforce the usage guidelines that are included in the photo library. There's a PDF copy of the usage guidelines at the very bottom of the photo gallery that you can read through, but you know, it's pretty standard fair use guidelines, and we just ask that you credit the photographer properly and includes, I think there's a watermark on the images that includes courtesy of Rails to Trails. That's on there as well, but otherwise, we're really excited to have this as a resource, hopefully, for our trail partners across the IHTC and beyond. Stop sharing the screen here, and I can attempt to answer any questions.
Okay, there are a couple, and thank you for that, Kelly. And by the way, I was just noticing the one picture that you had early on when you talked about a variety of images and types of people that are in the image, and I was like, oh boy, if I'm out there, by the way, we shouldn't denigrate the iPhone or pocket phones, because your best camera is the one that you have with you. So
right.
Even though I have the real camera, if I spun around and I was on the trail and I saw a guy in a wheelchair coming at me with a dog on it, I'm like, oh my Lord, here's the moment. Don't screw it up, and grab that. So Laura has just asked that she has tons of photos, and she's wondering how somebody might book send them to Eric via, I don't know if you do it via Google Photos or whether that is some sort of internal upload process that you all have. So Kelly, how do you all handle somebody that says, I got a ton of images, here y'all go? How do you do that?
Right. Yeah. So we're kind of figuring out that process. We just recently, as an organization, spent actually a couple of years getting a lot of photos into this this online library. And I would just say contact Eric. We would love to, included in the library is a lot of other types of photos. I'll just kind of, just echo what you said, Jim, and I think what was included in the conversation before is certainly we don't want to denigrate the use of the iPhone. I mean, it's a really valuable tool. A part of the I think impetus for getting these professional images was also requests from those tourism and CVB partners that we were working with that would need them for print materials as well, right? We just didn't have photos with like high enough resolution, or like I said, they were looking for different user types. And that was a really important part of why we made the decision to invest in this too. And because we know too that along with tourism and CVB is really trying to promote visits to an area, it also turns into, for some of these rural communities, a real resident recruitment and retention tool too, right? So they want to be putting images out there that reflect all types of people who might live, work, and play in a community. So that was a really important part of why we kind of spent time and effort to do this.
And by the way, if somebody is shooting from a technical standpoint, because I find myself asking that when somebody is looking for print images, is there a specific like minimal pixel length on the long side and a minimal DPI that people should be shooting at? If they can change their settings on their fancy camera, what's the minimum that they should be shooting at for, if they got lightning in an image and it's like, oh, I wish that was, the settings were right on that. Do you have that technical detail?
I have no idea.
That's okay. That's okay.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to get into the weeds on that. So the final question, we're entering the last 9 minutes of our session here, is are there any common things your followers are asking about or looking for regarding trails? Beyond the dogs, what other content are people looking for, such as maps or Cleveland's favorite topic, parking? So what are the things that people are looking for?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, that question hits on two big ones, maps and parking. And, maps are really challenging, especially if you have a small team. Having an accurate map is really hard. But of course, there are a lot of resources out there. I know the county has a great trails map on their greenways site, so you can share that. But parking is another big one. We just created a new page on our website that has all the trailheads to the towpath trail in Cuyahoga County with like addresses, so you can type it into Google Maps, because that was one of the questions we were getting is where do I park? Where do I go? So yeah, definitely a big request. You definitely need to create content around those two questions.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Megan. I think maps are a really big thing that people are looking to kind of give that context. I'd like to, give a shout out to the county's GIS team, who makes these really cool visual story maps, and Jordan Abbott, a member of the GIS team, has been kind of crafting one of these. I'm happy to share it really quickly. It's still kind of in its working phases, but it's a really cool way to give added context. This is for just one phase of the towpath, but you can kind of see here on the left, he highlights where the specific location is, and he shows some of those visual elements, going even back to the groundbreaking in 2017. So as you scroll through, you can see different elements of the map and even zoom out to kind of, see the added context there. So there's really cool ways to use maps to tell a story, and our GIS department does that so well. We've done it also for our lakefront public access plan, which contains trails and bikeways. So it's a really cool thing that I think people enjoy taking a look at.
That's nice. That's very nice. Okay, so we're in the last few minutes. I'm sorry, Kelly, were you going to add something?
Oh, I was just going to give a quick plug for RTC's Trail Moments, which is a campaign that we were doing to share personal experiences on trails across the country. I'm just going to share my screen real quick here too. And I thought this group might be interested in it. And there I'm sure are even trail stories that are Cleveland based. This has just a nice collection of like what we were calling trail moments. And, we're also using it as a way to get people to use the TrailLink app, which is a trail finder app. But it's just a really nice way to see in the story gallery different reasons why people use trails. And again, this is kind of gets back to my original point about conversion ladder, right? From trail user to supporter to advocate. These are all personal stories of how trails have impacted somebody's life and kind of advanced them in that ladder, I think. So just wanted to share that as a resource. It's just at railstotrails.org, and you can find the trail moments there.
Well, let's see now. I think we're pretty close here. So I'm going to just ask an off-the-cuff question, and that is, President Joe Biden just reminded us that the pandemic is over, but we have been, as organizations, spent the better part of 2 years coming through things. I'm curious as to how the pandemic caused you all to pivot, or that phrase, Devyn, that you used, lean into the problem to do things differently, because it's like we can't operate like we used to do before. Do you have any quick thoughts on things that you did as like in person wasn't an option? So like Canalway, your towpath series where you're actually providing stuff, programming stuff to get people to do it. You're not doing led tours. It's kind of like you're providing that backbone of an experience that people have to self-lead themselves on the tour. So can you talk a little bit about that, Megan?
Sure. So one event that we transitioned, and this was, I started at Canalway at the beginning of 2022, so this was before my time, but we did it the same this year because it was so successful. Was we had Cycle Canalway, which was previously an in-person event where a big group of bikes went down the towpath trail, and we transitioned that to be digital by providing maps, asking people to sign up for a list, and then emailing those maps that were pretty detailed in that they had places to stop, they had sites, they marked interpretive signage. So not only were you going along the towpath, but you knew where to stop, where you could learn a little bit about history, where you could find something new, where there was a restaurant, connections like that. So that was an event that we transitioned a little bit to be more pandemic friendly. And then I did see a question in the Q&A that I just wanted to hit on real quick. That's just about, do you partner with any trailside businesses, share content, anything like that? And the towpath is very lucky in Cuyahoga County because we do have so many supportive partners. Just in the Tremont area, I know Martha on the Fly is really great about sharing content. You can buy a breakfast sandwich and you can walk down to the towpath. They've done a few videos like that that have been great for promoting that. And then additionally, the new apartment building that just opened up on the towpath, Electric Gardens, they have been so supportive of the towpath and really using it as an element to, draw in, potential renters. So we definitely share their content and they're really great about supporting us as well.
And that brings us to the edge of, or the end of our seminar. So thank you again, ladies, for this stimulating chat about social. So that will end today's virtual session. So we do have two programs this afternoon that are mobile workshops, the Nord Family Greenway walking tour at 2 o'clock. Actually, we have 3 of them. The Euclid Creek Reservation Trails tour from 2 to 3:30, and then the bike tour, public space improvements along Cleveland Cultural Gardens. And let me make sure that I'm good on this. So those were Thursdays, so I'm not sure about Wednesday. So with that, I'm also going to say that tomorrow, the Thursday morning virtual session at 9 o'clock to 10:30, opening remarks will be made by Grace Gallucci, the Executive Director and CEO of NOACA, Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency. So feel free to join us for that. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you again for our hosts and our presenters for being part of today's conversation. And we'll see you either on the trail later this afternoon or virtually tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.